Are we about to strike Iran again? How are you reading this?
I don't know that the president has made a decision yet, and certainly he is hearing a lot of chatter from both camps. There are those like Senator Lindsey Graham who are publicly really urging him on.
Yeah.
There are others who I think rightly are questioning what the objective of such a strike would be, and I haven't heard that well answered yet. And then if you look across to the Gulf, I think that for the most part, the president is hearing from Gulf allies some real skepticism about what a strike would actually contribute to stability in the region.
What would it be attempting to accomplish? A couple of weeks ago, this was about mass protests. The president said, remember, help is on the way. The help never arrived. Thousands of protesters died. So what would this strike do?
So first, I think we're looking now maybe at tens of thousands of protesters.
Wow.
The loss of life was enormous.
Yeah.
And it is quite a dangerous thing.
We're hearing plus 30,000 at this point.
I think it's hard to...
But what would a strike do to save them?
So, the folks that are encouraging a strike, I think, are really kind of agitating for regime change, and that likely includes Israel as well. I think that perhaps, though, is a false understanding of what the objective is, because you're talking about a millennia-old empire.
Right.
And so, toppling the top level of leadership doesn't necessarily bring the type of change, I think, that, people are thinking of when they speculate about helping protesters. In fact, every simulation that the U.S. government or military has run in recent years demonstrates that if, in fact, you did take out, for example, the supreme leader, the beneficiary of that would be the IRGC.
Right.
Hardly a better situation for protesters.
So we would be putting them in control of the country. Then is this something that the president needs to tread carefully? Because once we open this can of worms, I'm guessing it wouldn't be like the last set of precision strikes that were targeted directly to nuclear infrastructure, for instance. We'd be going after military installations here, correct?
Certainly military installations, and I think increasingly the messaging that we've heard suggests that we'd be going after the Iranian leadership itself. We know that the Israeli government had advocated for that during the 12-day war. The U.S. actually acted as kind of a brake on those ambitions. And so I think you're asking all the right questions about what would be unleashed here. I think it's a correct assumption that we would not simply go in and do kind of a repeat or a mowing of the lawn, as it were, of nuclear facilities.
Yes. Right.
And so if we do go after the leadership, I think it's exactly right that we would be opening a can of worms that we are ill prepared to understand.
To what extent do you or the Cohen Group or your sources believe that Iran's nuclear program has been reconstituted? Remember the argument about that? The president said decimated, nothing left. We're seeing reports that that's simply not the case, and I wonder if it might become new justification for new strikes.
So again, I think Israel is moving towards elections this year. There is no secret that Bibi Netanyahu has long advocated for decisive action against Iran. And so if you look forward to Israeli elections, I think that Israel will be agitating for something bigger than what we saw this past summer with the 12-day war. And so a number of justifications come into play, whether it is support of protesters, whether it is ensuring that the nuclear program can't be reconstituted, whether it is talking about the missile program, or as you mentioned in the intro, you have two proxies, Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq and the Houthis, who are threatening U.S. interests. All of those give a pretext for a justified strike. And when it comes to the nuclear program, to directly answer that question, I think the statements about it having been decimated were, of course, made before any real assessment of the damage was done. Certainly, the program was put back, but whether or not it was decimated, whether you can unlearn things that you've acquired, knowledge that you've acquired over the years, that is a much different scenario. So I think there are plenty of pretexts for which to strike Iran if, in fact, a decision is made that's the best way forward.
We all remember Signalgate. That was about the U.S. striking this proxy in Yemen. If we're worried about their willingness to launch new attacks against the Lincoln, I guess we didn't quite finish that job. What's the state of
the Houthis continue?
Houthis in Yemen?
Yeah, the Houthis continue to be of all of Iran's proxies, which have been degraded over the last year. Certainly, when you're talking about Hezbollah, Hamas, and others.
Could they hit a U.S. carrier strike group? That be pretty dramatic.
It would be pretty dramatic, and they certainly have the aspirations. There probably would be a degree of luck involved, but I wouldn't put it out of the question. But the same with Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq. All of these proxy groups possess, some degree of capabilities, certainly backed by Iran, and so I think that is a threat that, first of all, has never really gone away, but that we should take seriously.
We have some headlines just crossing the terminal right now, Jen, that the president spent some time on the phone with the president of Syria. They discussed the transitional phase in Syria, said that the U.S. is ready to back reconstruction in Syria, having welcomed the president welcoming the ceasefire agreement. Would an attack or a strike against Iran put any of this in jeopardy?
Again, I think that a strike on Iran, one that really was intended to hit at the regime, unleashes some really unpredictable results. And so it would certainly have a destabilizing effect across the region writ large. Specifically, what the impact would be on Syria, I don't know. I think that Syria probably has some risks involved that go beyond Iran at this point. I think the administration has done right in really doubling down on this new al-Shara regime and trying to give him the tools needed to stabilize. But you interject any amount of refugees, economic instability, fluctuating oil prices, there are a lot of shocks that could come from the type of strike that we're talking about.
Just for clarity, by the way, that was from Syrian state media, and we'll let you know if we hear more from President Trump himself about these phone calls. But Jen, I'm curious, what does Saudi Arabia think of this whole conversation we're having, and are they in the president's ear?
MBS is certainly in the president's ear, and I think when it comes to this conversation, that's probably a positive thing.
Okay.
As the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Qataris have been telling us for years, they are, of course, the closest neighbors to Iran, and so therefore have the most to lose. There was a period of time where those countries really were in the crossfires. In recent years, Saudi Arabia in particular has really taken steps to try to normalize its relationship with Iran and inject a degree of stability into it. And so for Saudi Arabia, which of course has significant strategic ambitions, a renewed conflict in the region, again, the likes of which we can't entirely understand, would serve as a real disincentive to the type of investment that they're seeking at the moment. So yes, I think MBS is absolutely in the president's ear. We know that Qatar and Saudi Arabia in particular have been advising against this type of strike. It's a little bit less clear what the UAE has been saying. I think all of those countries have a wariness about Iran that is well justified, but that has to be balanced against the instability that would result.
I've only got about a minute left. Jen, I don't want to set you up here with an unanswerable question, but could we be in a world in which the president's board of peace, including a board member named Benjamin Netanyahu, helps to settle what's about to happen in Iran?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're talking militarily, that is absolutely.
What would Iran's neighbors think of that?
Well, I mean, we know to some degree, and we saw that play out this summer. We've already heard, again, from the Gulf states, their unwillingness to open their airspace for these types of attacks. There is a real sensitivity, more so since Gaza, but not only. There's a real sensitivity to the appearance that they are in some way collaborating with Israel, with Iran. With Israel. In order to attack a regional neighbor. And so that is certainly an unpredictable element as well.